Good day, beautiful people. So listen, it's always something when you are in business. And today we had some technical difficulties. But if you are going to be listening to this on the replay, you will not care about that because you were not here when we actually recorded it. You are watching live, which we do see as a bunch of people watching live. Then thank you for bearing with us and just letting us go through a couple of technical difficulties today. But without further ado, I'm Chisa Penix Brown, and my company is Give It to the People. And that's also the name of this podcast episode, which we call Give It to the People Live. So what we do is we feature BIPOC businesses, women-owned businesses, and then entrepreneurial support organizations that support that population. And I always try to find somebody amazing to be able to interview. When I go out, I see people that have all different types of businesses. And today we're going to be talking about the business of autism because one thing that I think a lot of times people overlook is sometimes they overlook disabilities. Sometimes they overlook the things that other people need because it's not something that they're having to pay attention to on a regular basis. But I have a person here that's coming up, Tracey Hawkins, who has a brand new business, and she has developed an app that is for helping people with autism, specifically with their children. So Tracey, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Chisa?
Oh my gosh, now that we can talk to each other and you can hear me, I'm doing great.
I totally understand. Clearly, with being in technology, sometimes it's, you're always going to have something.
It does, and that's never happened before, but you know what? It is okay because we're going to keep rolling and there's always a backup. So I want you to introduce yourself. Tell people about who Tracey Hawkins is and what made you even start your company in the first place.
Yeah, so Tracey Hawkins. I live in Durham, North Carolina, and I am a wife, a mother of three, and a tech entrepreneur. I really kind of stumbled into entrepreneurial land back in 2019. I was inspired by my younger two sons, who both have autism, to create an app that could really help them leverage technology, pull on the resources that they need in the times that they need it the most within the click of a button. So it was really kind of motherhood that opened up these doors for me and my family.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on that because I love a good mompreneur. And I want to just ask you this question. If your children didn't have autism, do you think that you would have created this app? Or do
No.
you think you would go a totally different direction? Right. And so that's why I wanted to express, like, sometimes the things that happen in your life create a necessity, and then you see a problem that you solve, which is definitely what us business owners are supposed to be doing. So can you tell the audience, though, what autism is in case anybody just doesn't understand it?
Yeah, so autism, quite simply, it's a developmental disorder that many times is diagnosed in early childhood, somewhere between 16 months now. We're seeing that kids can be diagnosed all the way into adulthood. It's best to kind of get your diagnosis as early as possible so you can go ahead and start getting those resources and better understanding your condition and things that could help you. But really, we just like to say, quite simply, it's a different way of thinking, right? We do see it as a lifelong. If you know someone with autism, you know some like one person that's how the autism manifests itself within that person. Every person with autism is not alike. Just how we are different, that's how people with autism are. I think a lot of times people with autism, it was always kind of broad strokes, right? Either nonverbal, limited speech, don't have social skills, all of these kind of deficit way of thinking about things as opposed to really thinking about I hate to say the beauty of autism because I don't want to diminish any of the challenges that people in the community really have on a daily basis. But we really need to think about it from more of a strength perspective and not so much of a deficit perspective.
I like that. And I mean, I think that, I'm used to dealing with people, all different types of walks of lives. And so you have to be able to recognize that people need things in the way that they need them, And so what were some of the signs that even alerted you that your sons had autism in the first place?
Yeah, so I would say with having two sons with autism, it manifests itself totally different within the two. So first off, James Preston, who really inspired the app when he was 4, his autism presented itself more behaviorally. So he had a really hard time when there was a transition in a schedule. He had a little bit of a speech delay where he had words, but forming the sentences to make words were challenging for him. So that was the first thing that we saw. And then just his inability to kind of adjust to a change, right? Or his emotions would get really big when something would happen. As simple as if he opened his bag of chips and the bag of chips didn't open perfectly along the seam, and if it kind of tore down the middle, that was really upsetting for him. And he would have really big emotions. And his meltdowns could occur from anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes, right? Within Adam, because we started learning more about autism from James Preston, we were a little more clued in to the multitude of different signs that a person with autism could have. And within Adam, we noticed right around 16 to 18 months, Adam just stopped speaking and he just started regressing in his speech. I remember Adam went 3 months without saying anything. And keep in mind, this was a child, both of our sons, they were hitting all of their developmental milestones, except for this speech within James Preston. And within Adam, when we started seeing that regression right around, like I said, 16 to 18 months of not speaking, not responding to his names, anything could happen, like an airplane could fly over the house and he wouldn't even kind of look up at the airplane, right? Just different things like that we started noticing. And I said, okay, it's time to go ahead and bring Adam in as well, because I think he may also have autism. So it just represented itself really differently. But one of the similarities was that speech that gave us a little more insight.
Okay. And that's some good information to know, because based on that, your experience, the resources that were available to you, in the area, and I'm sure you searched online, what was the one thing that kind of triggered you to actually develop the app?
So I would say it was not having the resources that James Preston needed all within one app, right? So I noticed, with the help of James Preston's occupational therapist, who we love and adore, she was able to show us that James Preston really needed to have more structure and knowing what was happening in his day ahead of time to prepare him, right? So just like we like to look at our phone or look at our calendar to see what we have for that day to prepare ourselves, James Preston needed that, right? So she cued me into, he needed a visual schedule, because for him, a visual cue is going to be more representative of his day as opposed to that of writing, right? Or the word itself, until he was beginning to be more familiar with identifying words and the meaning behind those words. So I started seeing, like, okay, he needed his visual schedule. He had coping strategies, but his ability to pull on the coping strategies when he needed the most, it wasn't there, right? So all of his resources were all of that tangible, right? So he had his visual schedule that was, glued to his desk. He had his coping strategies on a little 3-ring binder that was at his desk. And then as a mom and a parent who's always on the go, needing to be able to keep people informed at the click of a button, I didn't have that. If James Preston was having a really hard morning and I needed to communicate that to his teachers or therapists that day, if he had therapy, I was having to send different emails to the different therapists as opposed to one email. And I thought, as a parent, there's got to be a better way for us to help our kids navigate their journey with autism, right? So I started thinking, okay, it's at this time, 2018 is when both of my sons were diagnosed. And at 2019, I started thinking, there's got to be a better way that we're helping our kids manage this, right? So I do my Google search to find resources, and everything was a single feature device. So I could find a watch that had a visual schedule, but then if I wanted some form of emotion regulation or coping strategies, I was going to have to download a separate app. I was going to have to get a different device. And I thought, there's got to be, again, an easier way here in this day and time, the way we utilize technology to make all this happen. So that's when I did the search, didn't find it, was very upset that in 2018, we didn't have something as easy for our individuals and our families to help support our kids. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it with no technology or business background. I'm going to figure this out with the help of the community and, of course, my son, to be able to provide him with what he needs. And what I find what the community said would be beneficial for all, right? Just not
Okay.
kids, but throughout the lifespan, and not just also autism, but other people who have challenges with just executive functioning, with their ability to organize and structure their day, or
Mhm.
their routine. So people who have ADD, ADHD, a number of different conditions that our app has been found beneficial for them.
Wow. Now, when you talk about the community, how
Mhm.
influential has the autism community been in helping you to develop this? Because you made, some great statements about the way that autism has affected each of your sons, but I'm sure that there are still other effects, other things that other people go through with autism and things that they needed as well. So how instrumental have they been in helping you to come up with the pieces that were necessary for you to put everything in one place?
Extremely influential. I would say I have a community-based participatory research background, and that is simply meaning if you're going to do anything for the community in which you are, hoping to serve, you better
Mhm.
have community members at the table in the very beginning, right?
Mm.
They should all have a seat at the table. And that is exactly what I did. Once I had the idea, thought about how it could be beneficial for my son and his needs, I then started thinking, okay, let's pull in members from the autism community, and started meeting with kids, adolescents, and adults to say, okay, what do you think of this? And even I was able to pull in professionals like occupational therapists that had autism, to be able to provide their insight. And they were the ones that really helped to change some of the features to get it to where it is today. Um, just in the beginning, it's so overwhelming. So much information is out there about autism. You really got to really pick and choose how you see it, and what you think would be helpful for your loved one or that of yourself if you have the condition. So one of the things we were thinking about having was like a reinforcement, or kind of like not a behavior chart, but a way to reinforce positive behaviors. And overwhelmingly, our community said, absolutely not. I don't need you to reinforce my behaviors. I need you to help provide me structure. So we quickly took that feature out and off the table, and not even an option within our current feature set.
You know what? I mean, honestly, I tell people I do a course called How to Find Your Customers. And the one thing that I stress over and over, ask people. Like, I think
Mhm.
as business owners, we assume people want something, and that assumption is based on our own experiences. But when
Absolutely.
we take the time to actually ask somebody else what they think, you get a totally, completely different perspective. And you also get the opportunity to see it from somebody else's view, which then helps, like you said, to kind of shape what you're actually putting out into the world. And so, like, even with me, when I'm asking, I'm coming up with an idea, something I think is great, I usually go by the number three. I ask three different people what their thoughts are, at a minimum, right? So that this way I can get that feedback. And there's always going to be one who I love who tears it apart, and is
Mhm.
like, did you think about this? And so
Absolutely.
you always need that person, right? You need
Yes.
somebody who, who's also like, oh, well, that's good, but, and they'll add in always like one little great piece of advice. And then one person who, for me is always just like, okay, well, I like that, and then, but is this the right time to do things? Is this the right way, or did you think about this resource? And they enable you to be able to make a better product. And so I'm glad to hear, that you definitely went through that process, because as business owners, we need to understand that asking a question is one of the simplest ways to get an answer, right? And to be able
Right.
to say, oh, okay, this is why. And I think that that's interesting too, what you brought up, because in parenting, right? You have this, and I'm going to say new parenting, because this was not happening when I was a kid, where they say everybody gets an award for participation. If you were
Yes.
not one, two, or three, you did not get anything. Thank you for coming is what you got, right? So it's like,
Right. Right.
what you're expressing seems to be like, listen, don't reward me for just, I'm doing the best that I can, but I don't need you to reward me for that. And so did it seem like people were thinking that that was more of like a participation kind of trophy thing, as opposed to getting what they really needed?
Yeah, I would say it was actually much deeper than that.
Okay.
So a lot of times when you hear, especially with young kids, we're wanting to praise positive behavior, and if we reward you with the positive behavior, maybe you'll show more of that behavior. But within the autistic community, they helped me to see, well, what I'm going to learn to do to get what I want, which is whatever reward, let's say it's the ice cream cone for my son, I'm going to stop listening to what my body is needing in order to get that ice cream cone. And then you're muting and you're silencing what the needs are internally of that person. And I never thought of it like that, right? I was just coming from it from a purely kind of parenting. I want to encourage better behavior at home or in school, whatever it was that we were doing at the time. And when they are occupational therapists, who again is autistic, I was like, oh my God, like I was just left speechless. I didn't even kind of know what to say or didn't even have that as a thought, right? And that's why it's so instrumental that, like I said, they have been at the table from the very beginning when it was just an idea on paper. And I was kind of pitching it to the community. That's who I pitched the idea of the app to in the very beginning. Of course, I pitched it to my son and he was just like, yeah, sure. But then I was like, well, God, James Preston, I'm doing this for you. Like, give me a little more, right? But that's what I learned from them, right? It's not, you don't want to mask the autism. You don't want to mute the child's needs or the person's needs. So it's not about the reinforcement, right? It's about really helping the people who utilize the app to find out what is it that they're needing, right? Is it a movement break? Are they needing a snack? Are they hungry, right? All of those different kind of questions that we want to make sure we're helping to build those skills and strengthen those skills within our users.
And so to me, I like from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it helps to improve communication. And I think that,
yep.
No, I was going to say, because when you said that, you have, nonverbal. So if I'm not speaking, then I still need to be able to communicate with you to tell you what I want, what I need. And then do you think it also helps you as the parent to be able to know what they need? Like they, as far as being in the app, the way that it works?
Absolutely. So the way in which our app is now is really, like I said, in the beginning, it really was geared towards kids. But now that we have just recently launched our mobile version of the app, it is really targeted for anyone who needs it, right? We are letting go of the labels of the, age restrictions or any of that, and just putting it out there for people to be able to use it who feel like they could benefit from it. So when it comes to the communication, as you were saying, I can easily go into the app now and go into, because we have a multi-user account and a single user account that you're able to sign up for. Because both of my sons are younger, I have a multi-user account because I'm the one who sets up their visual schedule. I'm the one who's kind of setting up the communication platforms that we have with teachers or therapists. Of course, with my son's input, right? And as he gets older, he'll transition from a multi-user account and say, hey, I don't need you on my account. I can do it myself. And he'll have a single user account, right? That he can just add me in as someone that can kind of preview or edit or make whatever changes with his approval, right? So within my current setup for my kids, I'm able to communicate with his teacher and therapist, again, all on one platform to say, hey, Adam is really tired this morning. So in the beginning of the day, it might be a little hard. He might benefit from maybe not so many demands and maybe only kind of doing maybe one worksheet as opposed to the 3 worksheets, right? That form of communication. Or they're able to send me a message through the app to say, he did a great job. We learned last week that Adam was able to complete a math worksheet all on his own. And that's that communication, like you were saying, able to facilitate with the help of the app. Because I would have never known that, right? Sure, she could have sent me a text message, but because of our app, not only did I see it, my husband saw it, his occupational therapist saw it. So we were all able to see and, celebrate Adam and that big endeavor. So when he walked in the door, once he got home from school, I asked him about his day. And of course, he was kind of like, like Adam has words, and it's whether or not he chooses to grace us with those words. So since he didn't want to say too much, I was the one that was able to bring it up. And then he started smiling and turning red. We all just jumped up and down and was clapping and celebrating with him for completing that math worksheet.
See, that is to me something awesome. And I mean, even though I understand, what your original intent was, I see this as something that could be used for, to me, any parent. And I'm just focusing on the parent side of things, because, when you're saying that things happen at home in advance, and so his behavior, his personality, what's going on when he gets there may be a little bit askew. And so as a teacher, being able to kind of, see what's going on, because teachers have so many kids in the class. Everybody doesn't have a assistant teacher. And even if you do, you still have that barrier. So I just feel like, this could be something that would be really great. Now, how has his teacher been able to adopt to this, right? Because I mean, sure, he has more than one teacher, or does he just have one?
Correct. So he has, at this point, Adam has one, James Preston has three, but
Okay.
Adam more so, is where the communication platform is really useful.
Okay. All right. And so have the teachers been able to also adjust to being able to use the app too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say it's one of those things where you can have as much kind of input that you choose to, right? So I kind of put in all the teachers and therapists, depending on where they're, like occupational therapists, I'm going to allow her to have edit rights over whatever coping strategies we have in Adam's account, because she's the one working with him on a weekly basis of the coping strategies for him to use, right? To help him with his emotions. The teacher, she may not need access to that, right? That she may just want to look and have viewing rights to look at his schedule, to look at his coping strategies, and that's it. So it's one of those things where I think at the beginning, teachers get a little nervous because they have, like you said, so many things that they need to do. But then as they progress, they see the benefit of like, oh, wow, like this was really helpful to be able to know this is what Adam was working on in occupational therapy. Now we can encourage him to use that strategy here in school if we see that he's getting overwhelmed by something. So
that's exactly what I was thinking, because basically it's a reinforcement, right? So if I didn't know something was happening, so for instance, and it's not the same thing, but my son had a speech issue when he was younger, and so it was more of a lisp kind of, but he also stuttered a little bit, so it was a lispy stutter, right? But more so a stutter, right? And so, him being able to work out of it in a way where, I mean, he's done just a little bit more so when he gets really, really anxious than anything else. But I think that them telling us what we needed to do, because they would do that kind of therapy while he was in school, and so we weren't there, right? But it gave us that. But if we had that as an app, then I mean, that would have been something that was marvelous. So with your app, can you tell us, just to reiterate, maybe some of the features so people will know what is inside of it and how they can use it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our visual schedule. We have our emotion regulation toolkit is what we're calling it. And then we have our messaging platform. And then you're able to add in whatever notifications or reminders that you need throughout your day. So what we've seen with James Preston is he doesn't need as many notification and reminders and transitions anymore about his school schedule. But at home, that is when he needs the structure, because he thinks he can just walk in this door after 3 o'clock and he can whatever, right? Because he has been at school all day and he does not need any more demands placed on him. So we have to pull the app in more so for James Preston at home. Whereas for Adam, it is more so he needs that visual schedule within his day. And then at home, he really utilizes his environment to decompress. So I would say, like, I encourage everyone, please go to our website, thrivingonthespectrum.com. Download the app today. It's going to be free for another 30 days before we cut on our payment structure, which would be monthly subscriptions or annual subscriptions. And give it a whirl. Tell us what you think. Play around with it. And love to hear your feedback.
Now, one other thing I want to touch on, because I saw an email that you sent, and I just want to say it so that this way it's clear. So when I name episodes, I like to look and see what a person does and how I think it's going to resonate with the audience that we have. And the business of autism, you mentioned something with saying you didn't want people to, have a negative view of that. But what we know with anything, right? The medicine that people use, the doctors that you have to go through, the occupational therapists, everybody's got to get paid, right? And so, yes, even though we know you did this as something to help your kids, but it's also a business that you're running. And I want people to understand that. Like, yes, goodness of the heart, but it's also goodness of the heart because we have a life to live, And so can you just briefly tell us, like, how long that process from you going from idea to I have an app, how long did that take on the business side of things?
So I would say both of my sons got diagnosed in 2018, 7 months apart. So in 2018, it was really trying to understand autism and what this means. How do you parent two different kids, or at that point, 3 different kids, 3 different ways two of which have a developmental disability, right? The way that we parent one is not going to fit for the other two. So in 2018 was really just trying to understand autism. And then as we were getting kind of more and more understanding about it, that's when the idea came. But I thought, okay, not right now, right? I'm trying to figure this all out. And then in 2019, I started seeing more of the need for it, that, okay, we need to kind of hurry this up because this would be something really beneficial now. So 2019 really got the idea really together, worked with my friend in technology, Christina Che, to help me understand how to pitch to these companies. Kicked off my crowdfunding campaign the following year in 2020, was able to secure our first angel investor that let us start building the app in January of 2021. And then our first version of the app went live in the App Store September of 21. So from idea 18 to it on paper in 19 to then in the App Store in 21. What's that? Like 3 years? 18 to 21?
But you changed the app from what it was in 21 to where it's at now. So
correct.
If we look at the time frame, about 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 point something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In there. Yeah. Okay. That to me, and I really, really wanted you to give people that journey, because I think that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we feel like it's supposed to be poof, right? And yeah, some things can be poof, like poof, immediately. It's there.
Right.
But the research that went into it, the idea, you mentioned so many great things about the pitching, getting an angel investor, also doing the campaign, for people to be able to donate. Like, there was a lot that went into this, and I didn't want people to not understand that. Like, I wanted people to truly understand that business does take time, right? And so
absolutely,
even in that with the kids, now they've been able to grow throughout this time period. So can you just give us one like celebratory thing that has been a big milestone possibly from when you got that idea to where it's at now?
Absolutely. I would say being able to secure 3 angel investors, hearing that my son is able to transition from speech or from his general ed classroom into his speech without having a meltdown, because he gets that reminder on his watch that says, hey, you have speech in 10 minutes. So he's able to prepare himself internally for that pull out and wait by the door for her, as opposed to melting down in the classroom, then it taking 15 minutes to get him out of the classroom to then doing speech. Like, that right there was a win to me. And like I said, just coming into this with no business or tech background, and like I said, being able to land 3 angel investors, doing all of this in the midst of a pandemic when things were shut down. Let's not forget that when things were shut down, and we and my husband were sitting here homeschooling, we had therapy, we had all kind of stuff going in, but still moving forward with this idea, because I knew it was something that my son and others could really benefit from. So yeah, let's not shortchange it. It's been definitely a journey. We can talk about it fast now, but like you said, it takes time and lots of money when it comes to technology. You think technology, you don't need so much, but you get in there and you realize it's expensive to not only just create an app, but to maintain it and keep it going. And then, like you said, the different iterations of the app we've already gone through to get to where we are today.
Yes. Okay. That is masterful. That is what I needed to hear. So can you tell people one more time where they can follow you? And I do want to make sure that I recognize Dr. Michelle Simone Rencher. She said the urgency of now is essential for supporting neurodiversity. And so thank you so much for that comment. But tell people where they can find you, where they can download the app. And don't forget, she did tell you there's a limited time where it's still going to be free. And then subscription model. So go ahead and give them that.
That's right. So follow us on social media, Instagram at Thriving on the Spectrum, Facebook, Thriving on the Spectrum, website, thrivingonthespectrum.com. Go to our website or within our profile in Instagram, and you can click on the link in our Instagram profile. It'll take you straight to our webpage where you can find the app. Go to our webpage, download it. Again, it is now available on the mobile apps, iOS and Android, which is a big deal because before we were just on the Apple Watch. And thanks to our angel investors, we've now been able to be on Android and iOS, because I know how people feel about the Android phones, so I couldn't leave them out this time.
Listen, Android in the building.
That's right. I know. I was told real quick by people.
Definitely, definitely. No, but I want to let you know I appreciate you so much, what you're doing, and just the effort that it takes to not only be an entrepreneur, but to be a mompreneur, to be a wife, to do all of those things,
Absolutely.
and to do those things in excellence. And so I just want to tell you, thank you so much for being excellent. And so for everybody, if you're watching on the replay, you can still leave comments. Everybody that was here live, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And make sure that you always show up and show out, and that you continue to give it to the people. All right. Thank you so much, Tracey.
Thank you, Chisa. Bye.